You've been in that moment. You know exactly which one I'm talking about. Someone says something that hits you the wrong way, your chest tightens, your jaw clenches, and suddenly everything inside you is screaming to fight back or shut down completely. And then you say something you regret, or you say nothing at all and carry that weight for days. Either way, something between you and that person quietly breaks. And what's terrifying is that it keeps happening. Over and over again. The same cycle, the same aftermath, the same hollow feeling. Here's what nobody tells you. The problem isn't that you're too emotional. The problem isn't that you care too much. The problem is that nobody ever actually taught you how to disagree in a way that keeps the relationship intact. That's not your fault. But staying stuck in that cycle, that part, you can change. And before we go any further, if you've been struggling with this for a while and you're serious about turning things around in your relationships, your confidence, and the way you communicate, there are programs linked right below this video in the description. They go much deeper than what we can cover here. Most people scroll past it. The ones who don't are the ones who actually transform. Just something to keep in mind. Now, let's get into this. Picture this. You're sitting across from someone who matters to you. Maybe it's a partner, a close friend, a family member, a coworker you see every single day. And something comes up, a disagreement. Something small on the surface but huge underneath. And instead of talking it through, things spiral. Voices get louder, or maybe everything goes completely silent. One of you storms off. The other one stares at the ceiling at 2 in the morning, replaying every single word. Sound familiar? That silence after a bad argument is one of the loneliest feelings in the world. Because you're not alone, but you feel completely isolated. The person is right there and yet somehow so far away. Research in communication and relationship psychology shows that most people lose around 60% of their relational trust every single time a conflict is mishandled. 60%. And it doesn't rebuild overnight. It chips away quietly over months, over years. Until one day you realize you've stopped being fully honest with that person because somewhere in your mind you decided it's just not worth the fallout. That's the real cost of not knowing how to disagree well. It's not just one bad conversation. It's the gradual erosion of everything that was built between two people. But here is where it completely flips. People who learn healthy conflict skills, real ones, practical ones that feel natural in the middle of a heated moment, report stronger relationships, deeper trust, and significantly less anxiety in their day-to-day life. Not because they stop disagreeing, but because disagreeing no longer feels like losing something. It starts to feel like understanding something. Let's talk about what actually works. The first thing you have to get is this. There is a massive difference between reacting and responding. When you react, you're running on adrenaline. Your brain is in threat mode. Whatever comes out of your mouth in that state is almost never what you actually mean. It's just what's loudest in that second. When you respond, you've given yourself even just a few seconds to breathe, to remember that this person in front of you is not your enemy. That's everything. One of the most powerful things you can practice is saying, I need a moment before I say something I don't mean. 5 words. That's it. Those 5 words have saved relationships that were on the absolute edge, because they signal that you care more about getting it right than winning the moment. And here is something that almost nobody does but changes everything. Before you explain your point, try to understand theirs, not pretend to understand. Actually understand. Ask questions like, help me see why that matters to you. That phrase alone diffuses so much tension so fast. It tells the other person that you're not just waiting for your turn to talk. You're actually listening. And feeling genuinely heard is one of the deepest human needs there is. When someone feels heard, their defensiveness drops almost immediately. That's not just theory. That's how the human nervous system works. Now, here's where most people struggle the most. Staying focused on the actual issue instead of attacking the person. When things get heated, it becomes so easy to drag in everything from last month, last year, or 10 years ago. And suddenly you're not talking about one thing anymore. You're fighting about everything. And nobody wins that fight. Nobody. The skill here is staying specific. Not, you always do this. But, when this specific thing happened, I felt this specific way. That is not weakness, that is precision, that takes more self-control and more emotional intelligence than yelling ever will. Let's go even deeper for a second. There's something that happens in disagreements that most people don't even notice. Both people are usually fighting for the same underlying thing: safety, respect, to feel valued, to feel like they matter. The disagreement on the surface is almost never the real thing. When you can pause long enough to ask yourself, what do I actually need right now? And what might they actually need? The whole conversation shifts. It becomes about finding common ground instead of winning a battle. This is the difference between people who drain each other and people who build each other up over time. And it's a learnable skill. You don't have to be born with it. You don't have to have had perfect role models growing up. You just have to be willing to practice it. Here's something that separates the people who actually change from the ones who stay stuck. The ones who change don't wait until things are already exploding to think about this stuff. They put in the work when things are calm, they learn the principles, they practice the tools, and then when the heat of the moment comes, those tools are already inside them. They don't have to think, they just know. If you're watching this and thinking, this is exactly what I need, but I don't know where to start, that's the most honest and brave thing you can recognize about yourself. Most people would rather keep pretending everything is fine. There's also a piece of this that nobody likes to hear but needs to be said. Some of the damage that's already been done in your relationships can be repaired. But it takes more than good intentions. It takes consistent, informed action. Two people can want the same outcome and still keep hurting each other if they don't have the right framework for how to actually communicate through hard things. The framework matters as much as the desire. And here's the truth about time. Every single month that goes by without developing these skills is another month of mishandled conversations, quietly growing distance, and small ruptures that never quite get repaired. Time does not heal what you don't address. That's not pessimism. That's just how relationships work. The people who look back on their lives with the deepest regret are not the ones who disagreed too much. They're the ones who never figured out how to disagree in a way that brought them closer instead of driving them apart. Don't be that person. You already know something needs to shift. That's why you watched this all the way to this moment. And that instinct, that knowing, that's worth listening to. The programs linked in the description below this video exist specifically for people like you. People who are done with surface-level advice and want real, practical transformation in how they connect, communicate, and show up in their relationships. Most people will read about it and talk themselves out of it. They'll say they'll come back to it later. Later has a way of never arriving. The ones who take action right now are the ones whose lives actually look different 6 months from now. Go check it out. Not tomorrow. Right now, while you still feel this,